Um, so as
Excellent.
you
Yeah.
said, Sri, this is my life. This is my passion. Um, and as you mentioned, I have a place in Monterey County because my dad was a deer hunter. I grew up, hunting with him. And at some point, I had to kill a deer up close and personal. And I watched the light of life go out of his eyes. I'm not going to go into the whole story, which maybe I would do for Photoclave, which I'm presenting there. Um, but that's kind of my decisive moment in my life, and I love life. Life is kind of my religion, and then that's what I try to capture in my work is the sacredness of life, um, and the spirit of life that moves through all things. And so it's what I love, and I spent a lot of time. I think I was telling Richard this I'd taken 300,000 images so far this year. Um, and and that's the poor year for me because I hurt my back last winter and I didn't start until like April. So anyway, my this is really kind of all my images were from my backyard, or from my ranch, from a bird blind, and another place in Oregon, which probably some of you know. Um, and they're all really taken from photo blinds. I'm not sure, or if they take it from my backyard, I usually just use the chair, open my back door, and take birds from there. So I don't chase birds usually very often. I don't hunt them. I let them come to me, and I set up perches, kind of Vila a la Murphy does, setups maybe not as elaborate with him as what he does with flowers and things like that, that he had available in Texas and stuff. But that's kind of what I do. I was kind of known for my orange lichen perches, although I don't know if any of them um, have any orange lichen perches here, but we'll see. So basically, I'm a professional. This is what I do. I have enough income just to do this, and I'm hoping to go to Africa in January. And I just posted, it's not a bird, but it's a bobcat. Um, and I just posted a blog, which is dreamcatcherimages.net. And there's the address of my blog posts. So you can go to dreamcatcherimages.net, click on blog, and read my story about this wonderful bobcat that came like within 20 feet of me when I was in my blind at my ranch. And I love this image because it represents my style of getting close and seeing the spirit, the sacredness of life, clean backgrounds. You can just see his cornea. It's just so powerful, the transparency of the cornea. This was actually when he was walking away from me and he turned to look down towards my cabin, and I switched lenses. I was telling Richard that I just bought a 1:500. I use the Canon equipment and stuff like that. So I just kind of put this in as a little introduction to be next to a wild bobcat. I stopped at my friend Oliver's house and looked at some of his images from Triple D Farm in Montana, where you go and shoot predators and stuff. And this animal exudes wildness, where his little kitten, you can tell it's playing almost, and it's not, wild behavior and stuff. So that's kind of a little bit a difference from, game farms and shooting in the wild. So, one of the photoclaves, let me maybe close this or make it smaller. One of the things from photoclave in 2018, Seth Resnick said, write down the words that, resonate with you. And I've mentioned some already, like sacredness of life, beauty, empathetic connection, awareness, wonder, the mystery of life, love. I was born on Valentine's Day, so I have a I think love can change the world. I have a love for all living creatures. I believe in harmony, harmony of all things that Native Americans express, a oneness of the web of life. And I know that nature's beauty can stir your soul. And from photography, we can preserve and protect wild animals and wild places. And this is kind of my artist statement. So I just kind of lead off with that a little bit. But that's a little bit more about me. This is kind of my backyard. And it's my setup. It's actually my old Canon lens. Last June I bought the R600, but this is the original 1999 version that weighs almost 12 pounds. And with my 7D, because this was from 2020. And this is in my backyard. You can see some of my perches, and this is the way it looked in 2020. My flash setup with the Wimbley brackets. I'm not using flash too much anymore. With processing techniques, be able to select subjects so easy to lighten them and stuff like that. And I'll show some examples. And there's kind of my equipment list. I bought my first R5 in October 2020 before I went to Yellowstone with Brent Paul. Now I have two of them. And then last June, I decided my 99 version was too heavy, that I'm getting older. So I bought one that's half the weight. So I have the R version now. And then I also bought exchanged San Jose camera has periodically camera exchanges. So I turned in my 400 DO and my 1-400 and got a 1-500 Canon. And I like it a lot, even with the teller converter. You can't go back to 100. It's kind of limited to 300 to 500, but that's limit very, it's not that limiting, I don't feel. So, but it does get you, it's a good secondary lens. So when I go to Africa, I'll be shooting my 600, but I always will have my 1-500 on the seat and switch back for bigger or closer when they come closer. So it's easy to carry. I have a strap for it, a rapid strap, and I can untake it and stuff like that. I also have my 1-4 converter is practically on all the time, and then I might take it off if I'm too close. I do have the 600 speed lights. I have my old Gitzo tripod. I bent one. I finally took 6 months, but they sent me a replacement. I bent it in Milpitas, going from across the bridge and one of the fences. But then I bought a really right stuff tripod, which I normally use. And then I use a gimbal head all the time. I am primarily a tripod shooter. I don't use monopods, and then I have a remote switch. So that's my basic equipment. I do have, some wide angle lens for landscape stuff too. And I have a macro lens. Most of those are EF lenses though. And that's another picture of my, this is my old setup as well. You can see I drape my vest there. And this is kind of, there's my vest. I think it's a great vest. Weekender has so many pockets. And so if you're needing a vest, this is the one I recommend. And there's kind of, it's called Weekender. I have the link there, so you'll be able to find it and stuff like that. I even brought my friend Gina one. So, and this is the blind that I use. So all the ones other than from my shooting from my backyard, inside my backyard door, I shoot from a doghouse blind. I've been using these since I finally gave up on the LaRue blinds in the 90s. So I probably should have bought stock in this company, because I leave them out at my ranch. I've probably bought 30, maybe 40 blinds in 20 years. And I need to buy another one because took my new one down to the ranch and stuff. But it's portable. It's like one of those filter kind of filter things where you just twist. And They used to have screens across the front, but now I use just open the window just like it's shown there, and I sit back. And so my lens doesn't stick out, and that's very important because if your lens sticks out, then when you move, birds will see it and they'll fly away because movement attracts, it's like danger for them. So, if you feed them, they will come. So, for most people, even if you're living in an apartment and you can set up a feeder in your balcony, the birds will come and you'll have birds coming to your feeder. So, providing food, it's a common practice, and I don't have any ethical problems feeding birds, and I, keep my feeders clean and stuff like that. And then providing a water source, especially in dry country, a bird bath. Birds love to bathe. And then what I do is I put perches strategically placed around my ponds at the ranch or my bird bath here in my backyard. And I I control the backgrounds by doing that. So the backgrounds are far enough away that my 600 dissolves the background, creates a great bokeh, and that isolates the subject so that you have great photographs. I just I had a Wimberley plant that I wasn't using, kind of that little crinky thing that you can, put on your tripod. You can, on the other end, just take a chamise branch and use it as a perch. I did that at the ranch, but I've taken so many images. I got a goldfinch, Lawrence goldfinch on one of those, but I haven't processed it yet, so I can't show you that. But also, one of my friends who was down the ranch, Jan Lightfoot, she's going to build her own pond, and at her house up in Vacaville, after she saw my ponds, and we've talked about it. And it's good to have a place water where birds can at least feel a little bit safe, so they kind of stage. They stage in different places and things like that. And then they come down to the perch, maybe a smaller perch. And then that's where you can photograph them, and you can photograph them drinking, bathing, whatever. You can use the hunting blind. Those Aerostep doghouse blinds are really hunting blinds. They have drop cloth blinds as well. It's the place back in New Jersey. They have one. I used to have one as well. They're kind of a little awkward to use, so I'd rather use the doghouse blind. It fits up like folds up like a filter, like I said, and it goes in a backpack, and it's just, you can carry it anywhere. It's really easy. Or you can use your car as a blind. For example, if you go to Merced Wildlife on one of those car routes, or Sacramento Wildlife Refuge, car is a good blind as well. Just a tip for beginning of photographers, you want to start with large birds first, like shorebirds and wading birds, like egrets, ducks, things like that. Because 600 millimeter lens, the one I bought was, I like to say, a penny less than $13,000. So not everybody can afford that. So, there are cheaper zooms like the 1-500, or Shri was mentioning is 200 to 600, is $2,000 or something like that. That's kind of what I would start with if you're a beginning bird photographer. And then, I use a tripod. I've been using a tripod, so I very rarely handhold. And plus, my old 600 was 12 pounds, and it was just too heavy. I would ruin my arms and shoulders. If I was 20 years old, you see people, a young guy or girl who's in good shape, they can probably handhold. But I still believe that if you take their results from a tripod, which is steady, and they're holding it, and there's movement, even if they're shooting at fast shutter speeds. So I recommend a tripod. I know that Ken Felice, Carla use a monopod because of the weight, and they walk around with the monopod. But I still prefer a tripod. So that's some tips to use and stuff like that. Um, this camera settings, we could go in and talk for this for ages, but these are some of the things that I use. I've been using back button focus since the 90s. Once I tried it, my friend Brad, I think the Michigan photographer, what's his name, recommended it. I can't really take a photograph from using the focus on the shutter anymore. It's just like so strange. I separate those. But my friend John Sorensen, he's a great bird photographer. He uses focus on the shutter. And nowadays, with all the options you have, like animal eye tracking for, you want to probably set a spot focus, and some kind of wide setting for another focusing thing. I have all three back buttons are set up for all those different things. So, and I separate, I use my thumb, and in Canon, the buttons are just perfect for your thumb to go back and forth. And once you get the hang of it, you can do it really fast. But whatever works for you, if you like shooting with a focus on the shutter, then if it works for you, don't change, keep using it. That's kind of what I recommend. But I use back button focus, and I have for 20 plus years or whatever, even longer, maybe 25. So I use aperture priority. A lot of old timers recommend manual. The reason I use aperture priority, especially at my ranch, is that lighting, the bird can be in the shade one moment, and then it's in the sun the next moment. So you have to, the light is changed. So for manual focus, you got to, manual, using manual, setting the aperture and the shutter, the exposure, you got to change exposure, and that adds another thing into the equation. And in bird photography, everything happens so fast. I, been using aperture priority for as long as I've used back button focus. And that's why, because the light, 1 minute's in the sun, you got to have a setting for the sun, and then if it's in the shade, then you have to have another exposure for that. And unless you're really good, you miss the shot, basically. So that's why I use aperture priority. And as long as you know the triangle of ISO, shutter speed, and aperture, and that relationship, really kind of doesn't matter which aperture, shutter priority, manual you use, except for, if the lighting situation changes fast. So I always, next thing is ISO. I always recommended people, you find out what the highest ISO they're setting, that their camera can tolerate with noise. So with my 7D, I used to 2500, maybe 3200 was my max, and I wouldn't go above that when we had like low diffuse light. But now with noise control, you can do anything. I was talking to Richard, I'm using 4,000 or 5,000 ISO standard. I don't never go below 1600, only go 1600 if it's really light. There's, midday shooting, basically. And I'm really favor of, I love diffuse lighting. But I'm exploring side lighting more, backlighting as well. Used to be able to use, fill flash for with negative settings and help control those dappled lighting situations. You know, the harsher the light, the more power you give flash. But I think with post processing nowadays, you know, the need for fill flash is less. Somebody, I just saw another nature photographer say he never goes below 1/400th of a second for like perch birds or whatever. Um, um, you know, birds move too fast, and for birds in flight, I used a maximum 1/8000th of a second, and I got that from Alan Murphy, like 2020, when during the COVID he was giving webinars, and he does those birds coming into perches and in flight, and he's using the highest second. So I'm using whatever ISO gets me 1/8000th of a second, or 1/6400, or 1/5000, or as fast as I can. And then I might change my aperture from I usually start with maybe 7.1, just for birds that have like a shoulder and have some space between their shoulder. So I might use 7.1. If the light's really bad, I might go down to 5.6 if I'm, or I might increase the ISO. F8, if it's bright, I use F8 to get a little more depth of field. So with mirrorless, I use silent mode. So I'm using electronic shutter, shooting in the low continuous drive mode. I think if you use like the highest continuous drive mode at 30 frames per second, you know, you can go in 5 seconds, you can take 500 images. So that's like way too much. But and then I think I mentioned I used to set the single center point focus on my AF button in the back for Canon users. And why I do that, R5 does have a little bit of a problem requiring initial focus. Sometimes it gets lost or goes to sleep. So if you have the single point in the middle, which is the best little part of the sensor for focusing, you can kind of go down, move your camera down, grab something like rocks or branches on the bottom, and then it'll wake up. I use the star button for animal eye tracking, and then I use the I think the grid button. I think I used the wrong sign there for the one that looks like it's above the number 3 on your type for a large zone, and that's kind of the way I have my camera set up. So for birds, and that's what I do. So this is where I live. I live along the San Lorenzo Creek, which almost got flooded last year, and so there's a big river here, and I almost took out my house pretty close, 10 inches from going over my wall. But it's a wildlife corridor. So we have deer, I had turkeys on my roof, I have raccoons, possums, occasional coyotes come, and then all the feral cats go up in the trees. So and I bought this house because it's on a creek and it has lots of trees and wildlife around. So it's pretty cool, but we are having problems with the county doing anything about the creek. So that's just another issue. But that's my wonderland along the San Lorenzo Creek. And this is my backyard. And I had this wonderful tree there, the pine tree here in the middle, in the back, that's gone. That got all the beetles got into it and it died. I have an Italian fountain, you know, that's connected up that I can put water and stuff like that. My fence looks a lot better shaped then. And I used to hang all my feeders on the tree. I used baffles to keep the red fox squirrels out and stuff like that. Although I have a tray feeder over there to allow the squirrels to eat something so they don't get everything. But that's how it looks now. So so I lost my tree there. the one that died, which I was hanging, I had to cut it down. I had to cut down the pine tree too, and stuff. But and my little cross perch is kind of need to set it up again and everything. But you can see, especially over to the right, I bought a kind of a metal thing to put perches on and stuff like that, and I tie them to my little fence, and usually the top parts the backgrounds are far away. And then this is another view. I took these this morning. So I put my suet, double suet feeder and my little squirrel buster where I put my peanut nuggets in there, and I have my baffles there. And that still doesn't stop one of the squirrels. He runs like it gets a running start, and he jumps on the baffles. Then he goes into my suet cage, and then he was opening it up, and I had to put zip locks on it. When every time I put some new suet in, I got to cut the zip locks, put them back in. So those little squirrels and stuff. This is a wider view, kind of looking downstream from my backyard. So, and here's an image from my backyard. You know, I have two types of woodpeckers, downies and nuttals, and so some male nuttals, and that was from this perch here. And I love photographing in the winter from my backyard. So it's raining, the wood gets wet, the birds, the fuse light color is so much more powerful. And you can see this is my style to, have diffused backgrounds. And the subject sings. I've kind of changed my thinking about composition rules the camera clubs use. I think what's important is feelings. An image has to have its own song, with the music, lyrics, and I'm talking visually. And I judge across the Bay Area, so I kind of incorporate all this into my judging and stuff like that. So beautiful side view on this kind of gnarly old perch that has a lot of character to it. And if you saw from there, this is a Townsend warbler. They should be showing up here in my backyard, hopefully. And the purple in the background is purple nightshade. I got to trim that back a little bit, and sometimes it blooms. This one has a little orange lichen on it. And I have a V, perch, so gives it a little bit of character. Diagonal lines are really important. Fox sparrow as well. I haven't seen these lately, but these are from a few years ago. And backgrounds are almost just as important as the subject. And clean backgrounds are really, they make the subject sing, stand out, have impact. And I have a kind of like a log there, and I might have put some suet on here, and this female nettles landed on the side bark. And I just love the diagonal line to it, or the way she's clinging to it. It was taken pretty dark day, but you can, might brighten it up and stuff like that. And still you have an image that really stands out. This is another one, different time of the year. And you can see a little bit of where she's been pounding with her beak. And I look for gestures. So something of the bird, that one moment where it's intent, here he twisted around or she twisted around as looking at something else. There's so many little moments, if you get it right, you watch for these gestures from the bird. I love the over shoulder look as well. And this one I think is from last year or so. And this year we had a lot. We had two stellar jays have 3 chicks somewhere in the neighborhood, and so they were coming in and especially eating my cat's cat food I had outside in their bowls. They come on my deck, and so they land on my perches. And really a good opportunity I haven't photographed stellar jays in a lot of places. So this was cool to photograph them. And there's that over the shoulder look and stuff of a juvenile stellar jay. And then, one year I have a birdhouse. I think I put it too close to my house, but this year I had it a couple years ago. I had it farther away and it nested and it was bringing stuff in. And I love perches that have this like little V, so they land on top of that. And then here he's got a little bug, and that adds interest and behavior as well. Um, so, simplify your life to create serenity. Simplify your images to create images that, when viewed, haunt your soul. So I think, in my judging, I think in lens work, it's all about feelings. How does a photograph make you feel? What emotions does it generate? And like I said, clean backgrounds, simplify your images, give a clarity of purpose, and really define the subject really well. This is a male red-breasted nuthatch. So here in my backyard, I have red-breasted nuthatches, which is pretty cool. At my ranch, I have white-breasted nuthatches. So it's a little hard bird to photograph. He doesn't stay around. I think I have some better images of him in my archives. I have so many images, but this one is on my bird. This is a perch I have on my birdhouse next to my house. And the hummingbird, I have the hummingbird feeder on the drain spout, for your roof. I have it, as it kind of makes a U-turn. I have the chain there, and I have the hummingbird feeder there. So he often sits on this perch, kind of checks things out, and I caught him, twisting to fly away. And I just did my calendar for 2024, and I put this image in my calendar. It just really shows the male Anna's beautiful red color and stuff. And it's a redwood branch because I have redwood trees. This titmouse, I have titmouse. These are all from my backyard. And I'm trying to, time things. I'm looking at the bird, watching that moment when it tries to take off. And sometimes I'll put the edge of the perch in the corner of the frame and try to time it. Sometimes I use my remotes so that I don't even look, I pre-focus on the end of the branch. I do that a lot with hummingbirds at the Arboretum. And then I just start firing when I think he's gonna take off. Or I'll do that with a feeder at my ranch. You'll see another titmouse image later where I focus on the edge of the feeder and I see him coming from the tree, and I take a whole burst of images with my remote and I'll capture him coming in flight. These guys are really fast. So this is where 1/8,000th of an image comes in, really is really necessary to capture him, keep him sharp. And he's taking off here, just perfect action shot. With my tree that was there before, I used to get brown creepers. So they're still around, but now I don't have a tree for them to climb around. So this is a little bit older image where some moisture is dropping from his beak, just a little bit. And they're very hard birds to photograph because they keep going up and down trees looking for insects. They never stay still. I think it's my standards now, I'd say it's a little soft. This was probably 4 years ago. So I might, I could rework this, make it a little sharper. So I'd critique my own images. And this is the year that Bewick's wrens were nesting in the birdhouse, and they would bring in insects for the little ones. And that's what thing you can set up and photograph birds coming to birdhouses and bringing insects. And he has a spider web, and then you notice down in the corner, there's this web hanging off the branch as well. Lovely diagonal composition. And then here's another red-breasted nuthatch. I think I did this setup with Carla. She came over a few years ago, and we put seeds in the back of the pine cones, and they would come into to there. So that's another trick you can use. I think Alan Murphy uses those little plastic cups. He ties them on the back, the cactus, and all kinds of stuff like that. Little tricks you can do. This is an old one, 4 or 5 years ago as well. We can see the branches all dark, it's wet, there's water droplets. I don't usually have white-throated sparrows, so it's a pretty cool species. I love birds that are rare or you don't see very often, to photograph them, so that's pretty cool. Warblers, I usually have a warbler here as well. This one's still in its breeding plumage. So, and then you can notice that little glance, a little expression. That's what I try to capture, the gesture. Another a female yellow rump warbler. A little bit of side lighting on this one, so which I'm trying to do a little bit more of. And Bewick's Wren on my same perch. I use this perch for many years because, and with the curve in the elbow there, which I liked a lot. I have warblers as well. So sometimes at home, I get warblers at the ranch. I get a lot of warblers in the spring, but Wilson's warbler, and they move fast as well. So you got to be, the more you practice, you shoot, you get able to focus on them quicker. You anticipate things and you capture more images. It's just practice and mastering, being able to find them with your lens, in your lens. So all that's really important. Tap into your imagination and your creativity, and you will expand and grow. And I think, as adults, we need to let that child within you come alive like it once was, and just play and play some more. And that's the kind of attitude you want to be in the field. And that really taps into your creativity. As you can see, I do love quotes. So, and here's a bird that I think it's this maybe one or twice on one occasion where I had a American goldfinch that's starting its molt in my backyard, and it was in the winter and it's raining. And so I just, it's a rare species, so I liked it. I have lots of chickadees. They're one of my primary chestnut-backed chickadee birds, and you can see this was during the rain as well. And all the drops kind of added that little extra coup de grace to the image. They're a cool bird. Chickadees are happy. They're always happy. The way they chitter around and talk to each other, they're never depressed. And so that happiness is imparted to you if you observe them and watch them. Okay, so now we're gonna move to my Ramrod Ranch. I finally got an address after all these years. So it's on East Carmel Valley Road. Little history, it was purchased by my father in December 1946, and we have 10,030 acres. It's in the upper end of the West Orosego River, in the Paloma Canyons Range in southern Monterey County. So if you ever go to Soledad or Greenfield, you take the Arroyo Road, head west. There's a break in the mountains where the Arroyo River is, and eventually it will go past my ranch and go over a hill, a divide, and drop into the Carmel Valley. And you keep going, you go to Carmel Valley, and you can drive all the way out to Highway 1. Where the Carmel Valley Road is. This is the place that set me on my path, my journey, because my dad was a deer hunter. And I spent so much time, hiking and hunting when I was young. And then at some point I didn't like killing things. So I diverged from my father's path. He was a hunter, but I'm not. I don't like killing things. So this is the land I love, and it'll be always in my heart. And I'm trying to I have a plan to tear down my dad's old cabin and put a kind of log cabin up there. So it's as Boyd Vardy says, this is the place that set me on the track of my life. Why I have a passion for wildlife and why I'm a nature and wildlife photographer. So if my dad wasn't a deer hunter, I probably wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. And my mom was an artist. So I'm kind of a blend of both of them, my parents. And this is my pond, my main pond at my ranch. And there's the doghouse blinds. This is in the spring sometime. I don't know. This is probably maybe 5, maybe 6, 7 years ago, I think. So I've done some more clearing out to the left, especially. But so the bobcat you saw, he walked right from the left, right here in front of the pond, went around right in front of the blind, and I was in like the middle blind there with the window open. So that's how close I was. And it was pretty magical experience. So that's why you want to hear my story. I wrote a blog post, and you can go on my website, dreamcatcherimages.net, or just type in Bruce Finocchio. It's just like Pinocchio with an F instead of a P. And I'm the only Bruce Finocchio in the world, born on Valentine's Day. So I love love. So, and this is my bottom pond near my cabin. And looking between my vines, and I have some setups and perches. I had a little log perch in the back. I usually weed it so there's no weeds there and things like that. I have a couple feeders set up. And then why do I have those tarps, camouflage tarps in the back? Well, if you shoot in the, once the grass turns from green to yellow, all that background will be yellow, and it's so hot, it's so terrible. So I set up these tarps to create a more natural background. My tarps are kind of like that right now from being a year out in the wind and stuff like that. So I just bought some new ones from Harbor Freight. They were on sale, so I'm all ready for next year. Then you some of the birds down there. Occasionally in the spring and fall, we get purple finches. So I think I took this from the yard, just sitting out in the yard in the cabin, and looked over there. There was a purple finch coming to water. And one of the things that my ranch is pretty dry country, so water attracts birds. So anytime from spring all the way through even now, still there's birds coming to water because it's pretty dry there. There's no running streams or anything like that. So water is usually something that attracts birds. A male yellow warbler, from the spring at the upper pond. And usually I try to focus on warblers in the spring. Like last year, because of the drought, my spring had no water. So I had to bring in water, and I didn't have any clients or anything. I just brought water down and photographed water for the birds and photographed myself. A first year male hermits. I like to use rocks as something for them to land on as well. There's birds got a little bit of attitude, a little bit of alertness as well. Always you focus on the eye, especially with animal eye tracking. You get that eye sharp. It has a beautiful catch light. I think you can see like the pine tree where the blinds are in his eye. So usually we don't have hairy woodpeckers, so it's a little bit it's a perch I brought down from Oregon. So it's normally I would like the bird to be parallel to the film plane, but it was an unusual bird, so I liked it because we don't usually get them. And this particular year, a couple years ago, he was hanging around my cabin. And then behavior. Sometimes we have a house wren that nests in my cabin, like a little knot hole in the side of the cabin. And here he was on my log, and he was preening his feathers. So probably now this is maybe 4 years old. I may be lighting his eye now, give a little more catch light, maybe take a little bit more off the bottom. Um, Little things like that make a big difference. Sometimes we have bluebirds nesting places. I think Richard is photographed at this location, photographing. In the spring, we try to find nesting situations because the activity is a little slower. The birds aren't coming to water as much. They're busy, raising their young and stuff. And then house wrens sing a lot. So here he's singing. And catching his beak open and actually him singing. And this is the perch I brought down from Oregon, and my ranch also has nettles. You'll see a little top of his red just starting in. Just like the way he's leaning back, it's creates a V composition, which works well. One of my kind of mentors is David Duchemin, and he's a Canadian photographer, lives up in Vancouver, and I read a lot of his books, and so I have some of his quotes. He says, "The world has enough photographs that show us what something looks like, show us how it feels." And I think I mentioned that. It's a quote from his book, The Heart of the Photograph. 100 questions for making stronger, more expressive photographs. There's something about visual photography that goes straight into the mind, and if you have a story, and really connects with people. So that's really important. How does, when somebody looks at an image, if they like and it draws them back, it's kind of haunting, and has that emotional connection, then you're successful. Although I shoot for myself first, and somebody else likes it, then that's even better. So here's a white-breasted nuthatch male. For your birders, of course, black cap means it's male. If it's a little grayer, it's a female. And we have these at my ranch, where I have the red-breasted ones here in Castro Valley. Flickers. So I'm a little jealous because Jan got a flicker in flight off my perch at my pond. I wasn't jealous, man. I was a little envious. No, actually, I was happy for her because that was the image she wanted. And I put my blind in the worst place. She and Irene had the better blinds as far as seeing the perch and everything. So I heard him, but I looked and he wasn't there, and I looked away, and he came in, and I missed him. But that's all about being observant, not falling asleep in the blind, although sometimes that's hard. But a little story there. They bathe also too in the pond. So I thought this was cool. Maybe now I might darken that rock a little bit even further. Got some of the reflection. Here I put, like, this also came from Oregon. I went through the border crossing, and the guy said, "You have any firewood?" And I said, "No, I don't have any firewood." I forgot I had all these perches laying in the back of my pickup truck, and I didn't think they were firewood. They were perches for me. And then I got down the road, he didn't look in the back, and I said, "Oops, I don't think I should have done that." But I don't think I brought any beetles down with me, so we're okay. And in the winter, hermit thrushes are one of my favorite birds. So they're at my ranch now. They leave in April or March or April, and they're cool. And my toyon berries are gonna be blooming in December, or ripening in December, and they'll be eating them. So I'm really eager to go down and photograph them eating berries. So that'd be pretty cool. Here I have a juvenile female Cooper's hawk bathing in my pond. So that's another experience. This was from last year, I think. Yeah. And I also had experience this year where it was the same bird or not, but it hung around for like an hour. So I had my 1 to 500 with 128 gigabytes, 256 in my 600, came in the bay twice, and I photographed it for an hour, every which way I could, every, every possible way. I think I ended up adding up all the images. I took 9,000 images in an hour, and I've only processed one. This is from last year. But so I have lots of Cooper Hawks pictures. And then bluebirds when they bathe are really cool. This year, Jan, I don't know about my angle, but she had the sun reflecting from the hills, has this golden light, and she has a bluebird with a golden water. This guy's in more of a diffused, but he's bathing, and yeah, his chest is puffed out, all the water splashing, action, behavior, all these little things that add impact to your images. Savannah sparrow. So I like to put like wood so they can hop on the wood. I think this is at my cabin pond. And it's a pretty nice, clean image. What I call clean. There's a little bit of grass and diffused in the background, and some character of the log that I had perched on it. More bluebirds, a little bit of side lighting on one of the oak perches. If I was probably going to do this perch again, maybe I would just break it off up there so that little extra wasn't there. But I'm getting really picky in my standards. And just little things like this Phoebe perched on his stick right above the pond, and he's looking for insects, flying insects. I like birds that look down. You have this nice curvature. Love circles, things that have circles because they keep your mind within the image. Another one of my perches, and this probably was in the spring. And for you birders, of course, yellow red means it's a male. It's a male acorn woodpecker, and he's perched on the side. And I have acorn woodpeckers down there. Again, clean, just a beautiful portrait. And then Pacific slope flycatcher, and some nice soft lighting with its head kind of listening. I have other shots, but I just love this cock of the head and everything. So I think that what makes the image, I really can see the eye as well. A beautiful bird. Flycatchers are beautiful. A spotted towhee, we have those. I know all the calls. Um, you know, every bird down there at my ranch, I hear them before I see them. And the spotted towhee calls are pretty distinctive. And this, the orange, and it goes along with all the soft red, warm light in the background around the pond. So it's the complementary muted pastel colors of the orange is really cool. And then just waiting for that moment where his head turns a little bit towards you, kind of like Arthur Morris. You don't want it turn slightly away. Just want a couple degrees, from perpendicular towards you. And this one I think was from last year. And this was white, black, red, so it tells you it's a female. And so I put suet in the back there, so it's coming in from the suet. This year they were chasing all the scrub jays around, but they're very wary. They come and land. Sometimes they land and you just move a little bit and boom, they're gone. So you got to be, and there's my camouflage tarp background. So that's what the background looks like. Looks very natural. Instead of having all that yellow grass in the background. So Sharpshin landed. Oh, it's a Cooper's hawk actually, and land in front of my pond. And you wait for the right moment. Turns over its head. It's, it's a male. So it's, he's only like 4 or 5 feet away, 6 feet away from me in the front of the pond. And I didn't use my 600 because it was too tight. So I probably used my 1 to 400. I think this was last year. And that's why you have two lenses in your blind, one for the big birds and one, your big lens for the small birds. So you can grab one to the next depending on what the situation is. And again, you want to keep your lens, don't want to poke it out. You want to sit as far as back as possible. And then every bird species and even individual birds have their tolerance for noise, talking. Some birds are really touchy, so you got to be really quiet. So usually things happen best when I'm alone because we don't talk and stuff. I love feathers when they get so wet like this and their feathers pooch out and everything. So he's at the edge of my pond. Yeah, maybe I would take out or diffuse that little circle by his beak. Being really critical, but just look at the feathers. They're so beautiful from a golden crowned sparrow, a common bird, but he's so beautiful as he's bathing here. So one of my things, I have so many images this year of quail, just headshots with them dropping water, their heads in the water. I just haven't processed them all. So I've been working on this, and now being able to shoot at 8,000 ISO. It was always before I could shoot at 3,200. I'd be able to freeze the water droplets, but the head motion is so fast when the quail lift up, that's what will be blurry. Here, I was lucky that he kind of was at the apex. He stopped there. But now with 8,000 ISO, I can actually get them in mid-flight with all the water droplets going there. And I'm so picky. You notice, look at these little spots here. Watch this area on top because contrast is so important. You don't want anything to distract the mind. And I just darken those areas, smooth them out, and look at the image, how much it's improved. It's amazing little things like changing your angle of view, and post-processing, limiting little distracting elements. So I darkened this a little bit and I took out those light spots on the top. So, and then I'm always watching for behavior. So here I have a cottontail. He's eating lilac leaves. And so I just, it was too tight to get all of them. But I just love the way his paw is, look at the color of his fur on his paw and everything. I might even now select him with selections being so easy and even making the background more diffuse so that I reduce the contrast to do that. So another quote from David Duchovny: mystery relies on something more powerful than any camera or technique. And it relies on imagination. Another quote from David Duchovny. And it's not a bird, but never know what'll show up in my pond. So I had foxes over the years. I've had years where we've had gray foxes. I set up a camera trap. I thought he was, one of those little ones. It's produces 2 MB files. So they advertise it's 20 megabytes, but it's only 2 MB. And at night, he's still around. There's still a fox there. For a while this year, I thought they were gone, but he was drinking and he raised his head. I might even work now more on this little log over on the side. Actually, this was so bright, I worked on it a lot, but just love catching the drop off his chin. And roadrunners, they do the same thing. They drink as well. Pretty cool. Their long beak and stuff, and he's at the edge of the pond. Normally, I think the water level is pretty low because you can see some of the pond edge Normally I try to have it a little higher. And this is my gray fox from 2009. It was actually the cover image of Bay Nature. Some of you might have seen this before. Um, and that year was just magical. We had 3 young kid foxes. This one stayed around all the way to the next spring and stuff. And he was eating a bird feed as well. He came in to drink. So there's a trust, like the bobcat that walked in front of me. We looked at each other I looked at him from the side of the blind, and they feel that you're not threatening. You don't move real fast. You don't make fast or sudden movements. You just let them settle in, and you have a magic moment. So I'm really happy with this image. It's one of my favorite images. Another shot of the nettles. They're pretty common in the oak type grasslands that are around my cabin. And clean, nice diagonal as well to the bird. Some little bit of lichen, which adds. I love pine branches. They just have character, and they don't. The light doesn't bounce off. There's no glare from them, so they're really cool. And then this was from last year. That same Cooper's hawk actually drank in front of me. So to catch it's actually drinking. That's pretty cool. Pretty awesome. 600, close, intimate. It says life. It's drinking water. Sitting in a blind is just so awesome. Because you have all this life going around you, and just to observe it is just really special. And that's why I love letting them come to me. I'm not pushing them away. I'm watching their natural behavior, and that's so awesome. It's like I'm not even there. They don't even, and they don't change their natural behavior. So this looks like an ugly image, right? It's like the light's really bright, purple finch. Actually, I didn't like that perch. This thing is too thick. That's my original capture. And then, wow, with post-processing, even in 2020, it's pretty amazing what you can do with post-processing. And I believe now that taking the images, that's a whole art in itself. And then processing is a whole art in itself. And still, I'm not talking about adding, compositing and stuff like it, just using darkroom techniques, basically digital darkroom techniques. So here we have a warbling vireo from this year. After it bathed, it goes up and shakes its feathers. Usually have them in August. Usually that's when I see warbling vireos. Again, using a rock perch, having a young bluebird land on that, right? Using water as a background. Love using water as a background. I think it, makes things smooth. There's no distracting. Sometimes it can look golden. It can look like melted copper. So, and this is the one shot I processed this year from my 9,000 images of my female's Cooper's hawk that I took. My client left the day before. She should have stayed one more day. That's the way it goes sometimes. And I wasn't calling out. I just kind of like yawned almost. So always ready for peak action like this. Just clean. And then tanager, I just love the triangle of this perch and the way it was looking back over its shoulder. Really painterly, like anytime you can get a photograph that looks like a painting, was really successful. And then now I'm really focusing on their behavior. When are they going to leave? When are they're ready to take off? And I nailed it with this purple finch off the log perch that I had at the back of my pond. So that's a technique that I'm always observing the birds, kind of waiting for that moment where they actually take off. And sometimes you miss, sometimes you get it, like I did here. And this is where I used the 1/8,000 of a second. So I had a feeder off to here. It might have been in the edge of the frame here. And we were just shooting, watching it come off the oak tree and landing. And the far blind had all this, my chemise in the background. So it was beautiful. Actually, it was pretty dark and I lightened it up a lot, but I got him coming in. And we did this. I have like lots of more images that I could go through, but this was one of my first best ones from earlier in the month, for early in October. And there's my bobcat, and that's where he came from. And I backed off with the 500, and the pawns right down from him. And he looked at me, he knew I was there, but he was trusting. We trusted each other. So we established that trust. Sri talked about wave crest. So I actually took my doghouse blind and set it up in the middle of wave crests, kind of in the cypress trees where no one knows where I could see where I was. And one year they had a great hatching of voles, and the white-tailed kites did really well. So they would always come to this perch, and I had my blind there, and I would sit in the afternoons hoping the fog wouldn't roll in, and I got them eating a vole on this kind of dead cypress perch. And there's another one later in the afternoon. Probably I would lighten the eye up a little bit more now that I look at, but nice, setting sunlight. And you can see some of the vole that's left. Another place I go is South Central Oregon. There's a special place up there. Some of you might know where it is. I know some of the people belong to Bay Area bird photographers know. The guy who told me about this kind of told me, I'll tell you about it, but you can't tell anybody else. So I used to have a map there, so I kind of took it out. But if somebody wants to know, where to get some great bird blind photography, this is a great place. This one is not taken from a blind. So, but again, it's probably the only one in the whole series of images. And I'm photographing now with animal eye tracking. I'm photographing swallows in flight. So using high 1/8,000th of a second, animal eye tracking, and just using them wimbly, watching them where their pattern, they land on the wire, and he was coming in, and I just track them. And sometimes you don't even know that you got the image. So that's pretty cool. And I do that also at Lakeshore Park in Fremont. They fly low over the water where there's a rookery. I've shot swallows now. So all this is possible with mirrorless camera technology and animal eye tracking and fast shutter speeds. So I brought my trailer up there. My trailer's at my ranch now. My truck was new. This was 2019. I camped up there. It's kind of on the edge of the pine forest desert. And this is what the blind, looks from my blind. There is a wooden blind structure on the right, but it's in the wrong position because it's, has side lighting. So every day I would set up the perches, in different locations. And then I'd set my blind up a little back and wait for all the birds to come in. So these are all the rest of the photographs are from there. And another quote from David Duchemin: "The power to photograph to tell a story comes from its power to get human imagination started." So, photography is so diverse because we're all so different, and we imagine and we see differently, and our minds are different. So that's what makes it so wonderful of a medium and an art. This is one of my favorite shots. One of the first times I went up to Oregon, and Lewis woodpeckers. I just love this bird, and he's puffed out. I think I'm going to make a metal print of it. And they were nesting in that hole. We should have went back up again to maybe get the chicks, but we didn't. It's like 10-hour drive. So, but just love the way his feathers are puffed out. Typical woodpecker position, using his tail to hold them up and everything. And he's just a beautiful coloration on these birds is super fantastic. This is also from 2010, a red-breasted sapsucker. Just to love the way he turned and looked on this perch. It's on my big collection that I have with Oliver. I have a big bird post from that time period. They have lots of crossbills. They're always coming in. Beautiful diffused lights, just nice sweep of a perch. One Cassin's finch. They have Cassin finches there after a bathing. Robin after bathing as well. I think these are all from 2019. I'm shooting in June up there till like almost 8:30 in the evening, so pretty late, and came in late. Flickers, a young female northern flicker. There's some late soft light. Maybe it's a bit tight. Maybe I would, maybe extend the canvas a little bit on this now that I'm looking at it. They have Clark's nutcrackers there. They have lots of ponderosa pines. We go looking around this area for perches all the time. They have white-headed woodpeckers as well. This one's a little soft, but I love the way he was taking off this perch. And it's a mountain chickadee up there. If you want your viewer to pay attention to something, an increase in any kind of contrast will pull their eye to that area. So as I talked about before, contrast is something that the master artists use, Rembrandt, Picasso, to draw people to your subject, so that's very important in post-processing. And I have some little book I can't find that has all the techniques from the master painters, and I just got to find that somewhere because it has so many wonderful secrets. And using some of the lava rock up there, Western tanager bathing. They have Thompson solitaires as well, not too often, but occasionally. Love this shot of a Western bluebird on a ponderosa pine branch, drying its feathers, shaking them out after bathing. Another crossbill after bathing. They have green-tailed towies. They sing, jump on top of perches and sing. Another white-headed woodpecker, female. Brewer sparrow, and always, again, trying to capture that moment when it's like ready to take off or it flutters its wings perfectly in this V of a perch. Sometimes you get something else. This golden mountain squirrel was collecting nesting material right in front of my blind. So switched from my 600 to my smaller lens and got him with a mouthful of grass. There's a miracle of art when you create just for yourself and you do it in the truest way possible. Your work possesses an authenticity that gives it its best chance to resonate with someone else. And that's what I said, is you shoot from what you love, shoot for yourself. And then, it's a bonus. It'll resonate with someone else as well. And then this action, one running down, scampering down from a perch, just love the way his tail fills up that corner, catch the light in the eye, just a beautiful composition, nice soft light. And here's more soft light of a female robin, nice alert posture, kind of using the rule thirds a little bit. Again, mountain bluebirds. All these are from 2019. Just love the coloration of crossbills. I just learned that there's so many different species of crossbills, subspecies. I think some were coming by as well here. There was a different species that was on the birding post. So the cemetery, Cypress Lawn up and on the way 92 is a good place to see them. Again, a nice composition perch, red against the gray background. This place has great backgrounds. It's sometimes very hard to get two birds in different film planes. They're not, right next to each other in sharp focus. So sometimes you got to ratchet up, and sometimes you sacrifice shutter speed. Here nowadays, you sacrifice ISO. So don't be afraid to shoot at 8,000 ISO, 5,000 ISO, but we're talking about mirrorless cameras. We're not talking about, the older EOS cameras, those non-mirrorless cameras. And then you need to worry about a maximum. Their processors weren't quite as good, but it's better to get the shot, even noisy, than not to get the shot. And this was my 2021 and my best Lewis woodpecker shot there. I wish the perch wasn't as thick, but he perched down low. There, he was so skittish. I really had a hard time, and I used their box on their upper perch, and it was like really hot in there. This was when the fires were going in 2021, when Portland was 113 degrees, and it was like so much smoke up there, and I got stuck up there. I couldn't drive back because they had fires along the highway, so I stayed up for longer. There's a birdhouse, certain place. So instead of shooting on the barbed wire, I just put a perch on the barbed wire, caught them coming in with some insects, leaving the perch. And I'm trying again to shoot them off when they leave. Caught this crossbill perfectly, and got them sharp because I used a fast shutter speed. And then luckily it's so hot that we had hawks coming in for water, and the beautiful orange eye of the juvenile here, and just that intent look of a raptor or a bird of prey, pretty awesome. This is another one. There's some kind of like mullen we use as perches, and then this bluebird, young female bluebird, took off, and because I'm using a fast shutter speed, I captured this wing motion and caught it beautifully, leaving this perch. And kind of winding down now. I went to Sedona and Monument Valley to do an astrophotography workshop, and on the way I stopped at a client. He had a hummingbird set up with 8 flashes, so I did some flash photography with hummingbirds in Sedona. And this guy is a female black chin hummingbird, with a little honeybee, also on red yucca blossoms. And I got to see my first broadtail hummingbird, a male. It's in the calendar, so I will get the calendar soon if you're interested. And these are the places to follow me. I also now have a print store that I'm launching that's ready to go live, so people can buy my prints now, so that's pretty exciting. I had to pay the company 2 quarts of red blood, as my friend Gina and I joke, but I was on a program and I wasn't happy with their white borders, not using full frame on Instagram, so I'm on another program where I can approve posts. So things are working out. So I'm on Flickr. I've been on Flickr a long time. I'm also under Instagram, both under my name, and Dreamcatcher Images, where you can link to my store. You can link to my blog post as well. So with that, I will take some questions. So stop sharing.
Oh, wow. Wow. I don't know what to say, Bruce. I mean, those images are stunning, and the stories are amazing as well.
Thank you very much, Sheree.
Yeah.
It's my life. So it's what I have to share with the world, and it all started because my dad was a deer hunter, and I got to spend so much time out in wilderness, and I always loved the stalking part, being able to be invisible, so you would see the deer before it would see you, and that was always a challenge. And there's been a couple points in my life where I was invisible, like a bird will land next to me. My rabbits around my cabin, actually, they don't run away from me really. And because I project this kindness, this warmth, this non-threatening aura around me. And if you move slow and you don't, it's kind of the opposite you do with bear country. In bear country, in Yellowstone and Glacier, you walk with a lot of noise. So your
Mm,
disbursement, the bear hears you a mile away, so he hears you and runs away. But in really nature, you want to be the opposite, and you want to be like almost invisible.
as quiet as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So if people
any
have questions,
okay.
please feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat box, and I'm happy to read it out. And I can start off if you don't mind, Bruce. The you spend a lot of time photographing, and at some instances you said you took 5,000, 7,000 images. That is a staggering amount to go through.
Yes.
How do you pick your best?
So I do, like, when the activity is really low, I flag my images on Canon. I'm sure you can flag them with 1, 2, 3 stars. And then when I put them in I use Bridge. I just click and search on 1 or stars. So I already kind of know which ones are really good. But I'm like 2 or 3 years behind processing. It's just been so much. I shoot so much that I'm way behind. So yeah, I took 9,000 images in an hour of that Cooper's hawk. So
Yeah, incredible. Yeah,
so and,
it's both a
and
boon and a bane, right?
yes. And I process one image by image, each image has its own requirements, so I have a workflow. It's the whole other subject to teach and whatever. But if somebody wants to see my workflow, I can go through that as well. So
And the time, right? Yeah.
yeah.
I have one last question for you in terms of the Ramrod Ranch itself. You told you have your blinds and everything in place. Do you have a schedule that you actually have posted that you want to share with the group? When do you
Um,
take people over, or how can they?
Normally we have 2 seasons, spring, late April through early May, and we focus on warblers. And depending on the year, right now the season's almost over. So
Okay.
because the rains are coming. So once the rains come, then the birds don't really stay or come to water, hardly as much at all. And it's in the last couple of days. We're into November. I've shot as late as December, but I usually don't have clients. Usually from end of September through October. And probably if you go to
Okay.
my website, become part of my community or my client list, then that's where I post my schedule, and then you can get all that information when I set my schedule up 6 months or 3 months in advance. And then you'll be able to know and come down. And sometimes it's like nature's. Sometimes it might be a little slow depending on the weather's cool, but other times it could be magical. And I think on Instagram I have like a video of quail, all around my pond chuckling away. I have some more. I'm doing more video clips of Lawrence goldfinches bathing together. They all come down. So it's, you never know will show up. So maybe you'd be lucky and a bobcat will show up. I did have a client in 2014 did take a picture of a bobcat, so that I had my extension tube on and I didn't get a shot of it, but he did. So it's on
Oh,
my
wow.
website. There's workshops. And then the second one down is like bird blind workshops, and it has a species list, has images from different years, and you can look all through that. And that's on dreamcatcherimages.net.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So
Any?
Carla, I see you're there. So do you have any questions? No? She's being shy. So she's been there before. So
Yeah, yeah,
maybe it's different Carla. Who knows?
yeah. I don't see an image. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Bruce. I mean, this was just fantastic as always. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish we didn't have the World Series or the Warriors going. Probably we got a little bit more people.
But
So
yeah, that's one
yeah.
thing. And then, but once we put it on YouTube, actually, people do see. I've seen people go back and watch them. So
Okay. Yeah, you're right. So that's good.
yeah, this is one good thing about Zoom. The Zoom calls is the recordings are actually like uploaded. So yeah,
Yeah.
very
So
cool.
any more questions? I'm here available to impart my knowledge. So
Yeah, please reach out. I think I can tell you from really experience that he's a fantastic teacher.
tell us
All
about
right.
workflow. Um, so Marianne, so I use Photoshop. I don't use Lightroom, so I'm using DxO Pure Raw is my first thing, which creates a DNG. So Canon files, Adobe doesn't handle Canon files very well, so probably better with Sony. So it's the noise reduction. I usually run it through them, and when I put it into Bridge, not or Camera Raw, after processing DxO, it goes to Camera Raw, and I have both to look at. Sometimes DxO, especially for landscapes or skies, there might be some banding. So I always have the choice to go back. Then I also have Glenn Bartley and Jan Wagner's pro sets. So they have like 6 different categories of profiles. Like Adobe has color, standard. They have like vibrant contrast, reds, yellows, ones for flash. And then that's one click, and I go through them or just hover over them. Gives me a good starting point. Make some adjustments globally. Sometimes I'll use the adjustment brush to darken areas, lighten areas in the background. Then I'll put it in Photoshop. I'll create a mask, and from the mask, I'll do noise reduction, usually in Topaz, Photo AI now. Although I had some issues with the bobcat sharpening its fur, so I'm going to kind of be a little bit more careful with Topaz sharpening, especially their standard mode. Then I usually use the same mask to always reduce the contrast of the background. That blurs it out even further. Then I use levels or curves on the subject itself so that I get the brightest brights, darkest brights. Then I might use Nick. I still use Viveza for the circles for the eyes. I'll add contrast, brighten the eyes. I use always opacity to fine tune things if I've overdone things. And that's generally about it. That's kind of my general workflow that I use. So I hope that helps.
It's one thing to listen into all these different things which feels complicated, but one thing is to actually practice with the tools, right? And that really
Yeah.
helps.
Yeah, so right now, Dave Cross from Florida has his Photoshop Summit going on. So you can, I think you still can buy for $99 before the summit ends and get all the classes online. Otherwise, afterwards, it goes up to $149. But you can look at the classes for 48 hours for free. So it's the Photoshop Summit by Dave Cross. So that's going on right now this week. So that's a way to learn, techniques. I'm always learning. Following Blake Rudis. I got his blend if. I'm learning, how I can use blend if. And those lessons I have downloaded. I have so many classes that I haven't even looked at because I'm always taking too many photographs. David Duchemin, I joke with him that I haven't, finished his class from like 2017. And so he keeps reminding me, you got to do the class first. But at least I read his books. I'm pretty good about reading books. So, but yeah, there's so much information. So I follow, the bird photo show by Jan Wagner and Glenn Bartley is on YouTube. So I use their pro sets, which I recommend, and I would be using them. Also, I'm a member of Journal of Wildlife Photographers. That was Jared Lloyd's business. He left it. He has his own photo wild magazine, I believe now. He kind of separated. They have a community. I'm talking to Bill about doing image critiques from them, so maybe I'll be doing that. I'm also in the Palo Alto Pacific Arts League's gallery. They're gonna have a reception on Friday night, I think November 10th, and it's their 102nd anniversary. So if you want to come to the gallery, if you follow me on Facebook, I'll post it there, or or look up Pacific Art League, and they have 2 rooms, so this show will be going for like a couple months, and it's not just photography, it's art. If you're in the Palo Alto area, that'd be a good place. I think I will send it to Doug Stinson, and he'll put it on Bay Area photo scenes as well, so it should be there. Maybe I'll send it to Greg in Half Moon Bay as well. He has a magazine where he puts that stuff in. But there's so many things going on. Locations are just for wildlife photographers. There's what happened with the red foxes in San Jose. It's becoming where we kind of are a little reticent to share locations, because like owls, people, like pretty soon 50 photographers will show up, and then it becomes a zoo, and they were pressuring the little foxes in San Jose, and the little foxes got scared and went into their holes, because people want to get closer because they don't have the right equipment, and they want to get the shots that people who've been doing this for years and have the long lenses. So that's a little bit issue, but I'm always willing, if you want to go someplace or shoot or find out. I'm very open about sharing things. So just contact me, and I'm glad to help you out and help your journey to become a better photographer, because I critique images. That's what I do too. So, and I'll be presenting similar program to Photoclave in February when I come back from Africa. So,
all right.
So,
well, thank you, Bruce. So informational, and yeah, thanks again for your willingness to teach. Very helpful.
Well, that's what we're here for, right? To help each other, help each other on the path of life, your journey. So that's what I believe in. So
all right, if no more questions, then thank you, Bruce.
You're welcome,
good night, everyone.
Sri.
Yeah, and good night. Yeah,
I enjoyed it, and thank you very much.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. This was so good.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
Bye, Richard.
Good night now. Yeah.
Yeah. Time to go watch the Warriors. So hopefully they're winning.
I need to work. So
you work too much, Sri. So I'm blessed. So that's all I can say. So thank you.
Me too, Bruce. In many ways, yeah.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Bruce. Enjoyed it. Regards from Airdrie, and we'll be in touch with you soon.
Yeah, we need to go out to dinner or something. Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Enjoyed it tremendously.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.